on, and a garnet ring belonging to my ma, and, not having been apprehended by the constables, is supposed to have been took up by some stage coach. My pa begs that if he comes to you, the ring may be returned, and that you will let the thief and assassin go, as if we prosecuted him he would only be transported, and if he is let go he is sure to be hung before long, which will save us trouble and be much more satisfactory. Hoping to hear from you when convenient, I remain yours, etc., Fanny Squeers. P.S. I pity his ignorance and despise him. A profound silence succeeded to the reading of this choice epistle, during which Newman Noggs, as he folded it up, gazed with a kind of grotesque pity at the boy of desperate character therein referred to, who, having no more distinct perception of the matter in hand than that he had been the unfortunate cause of heaping trouble and falsehood upon Nicholas, sat mute and dispirited, with a most woebegone and heart-stricken look. 'Mr. Noggs,' said Nicholas, after a few moments' reflection, 'I must go out at once.' 'Go out!' cried Newman. 'Yes,' said Nicholas, 'to Golden Square. Nobody who knows me would believe this story of the ring, but it may suit the purpose or gratify the hatred of Mr. Ralph Nickleby to feign to attach credence to it. It is due, not to him, but to myself, that I should state the truth, and moreover I have a word or two to exchange with him, which will not keep cool.' 'They must,' said Newman. 'They must not, indeed,' rejoined Nicholas firmly, as he prepared to leave the house. 'Hear me speak,' said Newman, planting himself before his impetuous young friend. 'He is not there. He is away from town. He will not be back for 3 days, and I know that letter will not be answered before he returns.' 'Are you sure of this?' asked Nicholas, chafing violently, and pacing the narrow room with rapid strides. 'Quite,' rejoined Newman. 'He had hardly read it when he was called away. Its contents are known to nobody but himself and us.' 'Are you certain?' demanded Nicholas, precipitately. 'Not even to my mother and sister? If I thought that they I will go there. I must see them. Which is the way? Where is it? Now, be advised by me,' said Newman, speaking for the moment in his earnestness like any other man. 'Make no effort to see even them, till he comes home. I know the man. Do not seem to have been tampering with anybody. When he returns, go straight to him, and speak as boldly as you like. Guessing at the real truth, he knows it as well as you or I. Trust him for that.' 'You mean well to me, and should know him better than I can,' replied Nicholas, after some consideration. 'Well, let it be so.' Newman, who had stood during the foregoing conversation with his back planted against the door, ready to oppose any egress from the apartment by force if necessary, resumed his seat with much satisfaction, and as the water in the kettle was by this time boiling, made a glassful of spirits and water for Nicholas, and a cracked mugful for the joint accommodation of himself and Smike, of which the two partook in great harmony, while Nicholas, leaning his head upon his hand, remained buried in melancholy meditation. Meanwhile, the company below stairs, after listening attentively and not hearing any noise which would justify them in interfering for the gratification of their curiosity, returned to the chamber of the Kenwigses, and employed themselves in hazarding a great variety of conjectures relative to the cause of Mr. Noggs's sudden disappearance and detention. 'Lor, I'll tell you what,' said Mrs. Kenwigs. 'Suppose it should be an express sent up to say that his property has all come back again?' 'Dear me,' said Mr. Kenwigs, 'it's not impossible. Perhaps in that case we had better send up, and ask if he won't take a little more punch.' 'Kenwigs,' said Mr. Lillyvick, in a loud voice, 'I'm surprised at you.' 'What's the matter, sir?' asked Mr. Kenwigs, with becoming submission to the collector of water rates. 'Making such a remark as that, sir,' replied Mr. Lillyvick, angrily. 'He has had punch already, has he not, sir? I consider the way in which that punch was cut off, if I may use the expression, highly disrespectful to this company. Scandalous, perfectly scandalous. It may be the custom to allow such things in this house, but it's not the kind of behaviour that I've been used to see displayed, and so I don't mind telling you, Kenwigs. A gentleman has a glass of punch before him, to which he is just about to set his lips, when another gentleman comes and collars that glass of punch without a "with your leave" or "by your leave," and carries that glass of punch away? This may be good manners, I dare say it is, but I don't understand it, that's all. And what's more, I don't care if I never do. It's my way to speak my mind, Kenwigs, and that is my mind, and if you don't like it, it's past my regular time for going to bed, and I can find my way home without making it later.' Here was an untoward event. The collector had sat swelling and fuming in offended dignity for some minutes, and had now fairly burst out. The great man, the rich relation, the unmarried uncle, who had it in his power to make Morleena an heiress, and the very baby a legatee, was offended. Gracious powers, where was this to end? 'I am very sorry, sir,' said Mr. Kenwigs, humbly. 'Don't tell me you're sorry,' retorted Mr. Lillyvick, with much sharpness. 'You should have prevented it, then.' The company were quite paralysed by this domestic crash. The back parlour sat with her mouth wide open, staring vacantly at the collector in a stupor of dismay. The other guests were scarcely less overpowered by the great man's irritation. Mr. Kenwigs, not being skilful in such matters, only fanned the flame in attempting to extinguish it. 'I didn't think of it, I am sure, sir,' said that gentleman. 'I didn't suppose that such a little thing as a glass of punch would have put you out of temper.' 'Out of temper! What the devil do you mean by that piece of impertinence, Mr. Kenwigs?' said the collector. 'Morleena, child, give me my hat.' 'Oh, you're not going, Mr. Lillyvick, sir?' interposed Miss Petowker, with her most bewitching smile. But still Mr. Lillyvick, regardless of the siren, cried obdurately, 'Morleena, my hat!' upon the fourth repetition of which demand, Mrs. Kenwigs sunk back in her chair, with a cry that might have softened a water butt, not to say a water collector, while the four little girls, privately instructed to that effect, clasped their uncle's drab shorts in their arms, and prayed him in imperfect English to remain. 'Why should I stop here, my dears?' said Mr. Lillyvick. 'I'm not wanted here.' 'Oh, do not speak so cruelly, uncle,' sobbed Mrs. Kenwigs, 'unless you wish to kill me.' 'I shouldn't wonder if some people were to say I did,' replied Mr. Lillyvick, glancing angrily at Kenwigs. 'Out of temper!' 'Oh, I cannot bear to see him look so at my husband,' cried Mrs. Kenwigs. 'It's so dreadful in families. Oh!' 'Mr. Lillyvick,' said Kenwigs, 'I hope, for the sake of your niece, that you won't object to be reconciled.' The collector's features relaxed, as the company added their entreaties to those of his nephew-in-law. He gave up his hat, and held out his hand. 'There, Kenwigs,' said Mr. Lillyvick, 'and let me tell you at the same time, to show you how much out of temper I was, that if I had gone away without another word, it would have made no difference respecting that £1 or £2 which I shall leave among your children when I die.' 'Morleena Kenwigs,' cried her mother, in a torrent of affection, 'go down upon your knees to your dear uncle, and beg him to love you all his life through, for he's more an angel than a man, and I've always said so.' Miss Morleena, approaching to do homage, in compliance with this injunction, was summarily caught up and kissed by Mr. Lillyvick, and thereupon Mrs. Kenwigs darted forward and kissed the collector, and an irrepressible murmur of applause broke from the company who had witnessed his magnanimity. The worthy gentleman then became once more the life and soul of the society, being again reinstated in his old post of lion, from which high station the temporary distraction of their thoughts had, for a moment, dispossessed him. Quadruped lions are said to be savage only when they are hungry. Biped lions are rarely sulky longer than when their appetite for distinction remains unappeased. Mr. Lillyvick stood higher than ever, for he had shown his power, hinted at his property and testamentary intentions, gained great credit for disinterestedness and virtue, and, in addition to all, was finally accommodated with a much larger tumbler of punch than that which Newman Noggs had so feloniously made off with. 'I say, I beg everybody's pardon for intruding again,' said Crowl,